For you seeks leave of the State of Hawaii Land Use Commission to allow the parties to file legal briefs on the constitutional issues raised by intervener Clayton Hee on the applicability of the Hawaii State Constitution, Article 11, Section 3, on this petition and on the Commission's authority and power. During these proceedings, the legal issue regarding the applicability of the Hawaii State Constitution, Article 11, Section 3, and the important agricultural lands legislation, Chapter 205, Section 205-47, ects, have been repeatedly raised by intervener Hee. Furthermore, HRS 205-47 provides that each county identify and map potential important agricultural lands within the county's jurisdiction based on certain standards and criteria. In fact, the applicability of these two laws and whether this commission can render a decision on petitioner's petition was most recently raised by Mr. Hee's responses to petitioner's proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision in order. Intervener Hee has repeatedly argued that this constitutional question goes to the heart of the authority and jurisdiction of this commission to render a decision on the pending petition before you. As these two laws involve threshold issues of jurisdiction, the parties should be able to submit legal briefs on this issue prior to the commission taking any action on this case. And the commission should have ample time to consider the legal arguments on this matter prior to making any decision on this petition. I apologize for the short time frame in which I filed this particular motion. However, the commission has recently been under judicial scrutiny with respect to its authority and power. Specifically, in March of this year, the Third Circuit Court held that this commission exceeded its statutory authority and violated several provisions of Chapter 205 that address the commission's authority regarding enforcement of its decisions. Only last week, because I was busy with the findings of fact and conclusions of law, I was made aware of a recent Hawaii Supreme Court decision decided regarding this commission's action in the Waimanalo Gulch proceedings. In that particular decision, the Hawaii Supreme Court addressed this commission's authority and power to impose conditions as part of its decision-making authority. Both of these cases address the authority and power of this commission's decision-making capability. Issues relating to the commission's decision-making authority have been raised repeatedly and questioned by intervener Hee. We believe that there is a strong probability that if this commission's decision were to grant this petition, that an appeal would be lodged by intervener Hee. As recently as this morning, in the Civil Beat website, Sierra Club is quoted as having said that they would file a judicial appeal of this decision should this commission grant this petition. In light of this pending litigation and appeal of this decision of this commission, we feel that it is prudent for this commission to take the time to consider the merits of the authority of it to make a decision. The petitioner believes very strongly that this commission has the authority and power to render and take action on this petition. If the commission grants our motion, we believe that a court reviewing the decision of this body would reflect that this commission carefully examined and considered fully the legal issues on its decision-making authority before it rendered a decision. We all know that this case is a large case. It is a significant case. It is an important case. We have the time to consider this before the commission acts. The only thing that will go up to a court that will review the commission's actions is the record that we prepare before you. We would like to make sure that that record is complete, that all the legal points and authorities are before you, and that this commission has the opportunity and the time to review that, consult with its legal counsel before deciding whether it will take action on this petition or not. We also believe that taking the time to allow the parties to address this jurisdictional issue would not cause any prejudice to the parties. Again, we know how important this decision is, and taking the time to examine the legal merits and arguments as to the Commission's authority is prudent and reasonable. Based on the foregoing, the petitioner respectfully requests that this Commission postpone closing arguments originally scheduled for today and the adoption of a decision order originally scheduled for June 1st until such time as the parties have briefed the applicability of the Hawaii State Constitution, Article 11, Section 3, and HRS 20547, and that the arguments have been fully reviewed and considered by this Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Keliiwaihoikeone, any comments?
Yes, basically the city supports the petitioner's motion for the following reasons. Mr. Kudo has pointed out how important a decision this case will be, and that it could be in fact considered a landmark decision. The city, as you know, has stated that the project is consistent with the city's plans and policies, including the city's general plan and a development plan. And that plan contains elements that are consistent with this project, in that this is considered one of the urban fringe areas that complete the city's plans for development and directing growth to the floodplain. Therefore, if this commission has any question about its legal authority to act with respect to the important issues of agriculture, if this commission has any questions lingering about the legalities of its actions, then I think it also is prudent to receive briefing on that issue. Only if the commission, in fact, has these questions that should be fully briefed and answered.
The Office of Planning rests on its statement of no objection.
Dr. Dudley?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The Friends of Waikiki really does object to this. We are really troubled by the fact that this came about on Friday afternoon, about 2:45. And we're more troubled by the fact that the motion doesn't say what the matter is. I want to repeat that. The motion does not say what the matter is. It just refers to the matter. This is the first time we've heard what the matter really is. We prepared a memorandum, and we've been shooting in the dark. You know, what on earth are they talking about? They're talking about they're talking about the Constitution, and the Constitution doesn't regulate this body, but you know, and they're citing Article 11 in the Constitution. We cited Article 11. One of our exhibits is Article 11, Section 3, the very section they're talking about. We submitted that back in April of 2009. You know, what are they talking about? This is something that just, you know, then are there any sightings anywhere? Do they cite the record of where Senator Hee said all this stuff? I can't find it reading through what Senator Hee wrote. I really can't. Do they offer any exhibits? No. No, this was a 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday effort to scuttle this hearing today. That's simply what it was. And we object to it. We see it as a way of postponing the decision today, moving it so that we get some new appointees from the governor on the commission. And we also foresee where, if we don't make the decision today, this is D.R. Horton, who does have a reputation across the nation, and they will somehow arrange so there is no hearing between now and July 25th. You got to be aware of that. I mean, they're pulling this stuff. And we really, really need to be aware of what's going on. We need to finish the hearing today, get this thing done. I mean, you know, there is the Constitution, there is the IEL regulation, but there's also HRS 205, which tells you what your rights are and what the obligations are and what you're supposed to do. There's the Hawaii administrative rules. They all tell you what you're supposed to do. You folks are doing what you're supposed to do. You know, we just need to move ahead and do it and realize that all of this is just a smoke screen in order to get past July 25th without a decision. And believe me, folks, it will happen. You may not have studied the reputation across the nation, but they do this kind of thing. Thank you.
Good morning. As I said earlier, we do oppose the motion to continue. Our position is that this issue has already been extensively briefed. The parties have had ample time to brief it in their filings, and we don't see how any further briefing would be of assistance to the Commission at this time. The criteria under 15-1577 show that the petition must be denied regardless of whether this land has been classified as important ag lands and that process has been completed. You have an independent constitutional obligation under the Hawaii State Constitution to preserve and protect prime agricultural lands. You also have authority to yourself look at what is agricultural land and what can be designated as prime agricultural land. Finally, I'll note that this commission has sat through these proceedings, which have lasted several months, and it's important for the commissioners that have been here to hear the evidence, to hear the witnesses, make the decision. So we feel that we should move forward at this time.
Well, when I received this motion on Friday, I was actually somewhat amused that only now is Horton discovering that we have constitutional objections to this petition. Because from the moment I entered this case in September, we've been raising those objections. Every single witness that I've questioned them about the constitutional implications, the statutory implications. So it is flatly untrue that Horton did not know that these issues are before you, and that we intended to pursue them. And we certainly pursued them as well in our findings of fact, as could they, in terms of the legal citations and arguments that they wished to make. So it is simply untrue that they are only now coming to the conclusion that the issues that they now want to submit additional briefing on are before this Land Use Commission. You and all of us in this room have known that those are issues about which we have raised concerns for a great deal of time. Moreover, if you read the motion, I again wonder what is it they're going to say that hasn't been said. They make no effort to make any kind of offer of proof as to what they're going to add to the record that isn't already there. Any lawyer who files this kind of motion knows that that's an obligation, because if in fact they're asking for a special procedure to augment the record, they could and should have told us what it is they want to argue about. Moreover, they could have attached a proposed additional memorandum when they filed that motion. Or alternatively, they could have brought it today. Obviously, they have unlimited resources to run radio ads and do all kinds of other things. They certainly could have paid their lawyers to stay in the office over the weekend and draft something to bring here and file it either yesterday or today to show us what it is that they think is so important that you need to know that you don't already have in front of you. Lastly, they could easily augment this record if they choose to do so. If you decide this case against them, they may file a motion for reconsideration, and they can at that point in time add into the record whatever it is they feel you failed to consider. Any one of us who've litigated these kinds of matters has done that many times in the past. We don't need to delay the proceedings simply to give them another bite of the apple when they've had so many opportunities to present what it is they apparently think they still need to do over the course of the past many months. So we oppose this motion. There's no authority for it. There's no factual or legal justification in front of you to grant this motion, and we believe we should proceed as scheduled.
Thank you. Mr. Keliiwaihoikeone.
First of all, to address Mr. Dudley's remarks about the July 25th date. The July 25th date is the one-year deadline for this petition to be decided upon and acted by this commission. If the commission does not act on it by then, we get an automatic approval. We certainly don't want an approval by that means. We don't want to default entirely. The rules allow us to file for a 90-day extension, which we intend to file for, to allow this commission ample time to render a decision and to consider the merits of any arguments pursuant to this motion. The other matter that I want to address is what Mr. Sykes raised. Yes, we could have filed this earlier on, but as I said in my argument, there have been two recent cases. One case, the Hawaii Supreme Court case, was decided 2 weeks ago. We didn't know that before then. And that case goes directly to the authority and power of this commission to act. We believe that the fact that there have been 2 cases, one in March and one in May, that have overturned this commission's power and authority to have acted in the way they did in those cases. We believe it prudent, because of the importance of this case, that at this time that we take the time to look at the legal arguments, the points and authorities before the commission decides to act. We firmly believe that this commission has that authority, but we want to be able to brief and incorporate in our briefs the Waimanalo Gau's decision of the Hawaii Supreme Court. Whether the other case, which is the Bridge Ainalea case, decided by the Third Circuit, will be appealed by the state, I don't know. But that certainly is a decision, it's a written decision by the Third Circuit Court that can also be incorporated into our legal briefs. And I think it's important that this commission, and I think it's reasonable, in light of what's happened recently, to take this step and to take your time to decide whether our arguments are correct or Mr. Sykes' argument has been correct. And I implore this commission to do so, because I believe that it is reasonable and prudent action to take in light of what has happened recently. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Judge.
Mr. Kudo, after hearing everything that was just presented by the parties and your last remarks, are you ready to file this brief now? I mean, as Mr. Sykes said, is your argument ready? Are you ready to file this brief now, or are you asking this commission to wait a month? What is your anticipated timing of being able to file your brief?
We'd like 2 weeks to prepare the brief. I don't have the brief written now. I mean, we didn't know how this commission would act on this request. If this commission grants our request, we will be prepared to start working on that brief and file it within a 2-week period.
Other questions? Commissioner Keliiwaihoikeone.
Again, to Mr. Kudo, I understand your point about the recent Supreme Court decisions, but do you agree that the basic constitutional question was raised considerably earlier in this case?
Yes, but again, our move to take extra precautions at this point, in light of the importance of this case, was because of the recent decisions of the Hawaii Supreme Court. If it wasn't for that decision, we probably would not be filing this motion. But I think to err on the side of caution, we believe that the Supreme Court, as well as the Third Circuit, is very sensitive to this commission's authority and power and those issues. Since it is highly probable that we will be appealed if this commission grants this petition, we want to make sure that a court reviewing the record sees that this commission took reasonable and prudent action by looking at those points and authorities before it acted. I think that goes a long way toward any kind of argument that says that this commission didn't have that. And we want to make sure that the record is complete with regard to the actions of this commission being prudent and reasonable in light of that situation, and in light of the Hawaii Supreme Court decision. I'm not sure if the other cases, that is the Waimanalo Gau case or the Bridge Ainalea case, this commission took the time to ask the parties to brief the issues that were before it acted. I don't have the record in those cases, so I don't know. But I don't want to fall prey to a situation, because of the gravity of this case, to have taken a simple measure of asking this commission to take some time to look at this issue before it acts, in preparation and in anticipation that the decision of this commission may be appealed. It's just extra caution on our part.
Additional questions? I have some questions. I think Mr. Sykes' point on the offer of proof is well taken, Mr. Kudo. The memorandum didn't include any discussion regarding the substance of the briefing that you'll be offering. Can you give us at least a thumbnail sketch of what petitioner's position is on the constitutional issue?
Well, we believe that this commission has the power and authority to act in light of the constitutional amendment and also the important agricultural land statute that was passed pursuant to Article 11. We want to be able to cite various case law in this jurisdiction as well as elsewhere with regard to where similar issues have been raised to bring before this commission to consider. We believe that the HAR rules provides ample alternatives when agricultural lands are part of decision-making criteria, in particular 15-15-77 and 15-15-18. There is a specific provision in there that allows this commission to make its decision, even if agricultural lands that have been farmed 2 years prior to a petition is involved in a case. We want that to be also briefed and brought to the attention of this commission. That, in a simple nutshell, would be the structure of our legal briefs.
And then the question about the what you envision the format of this being. You styled your motion as a request for leave to submit briefs and for a hearing. You anticipate that there will be a hearing where argument will be presented and a decision will be rendered, or simply you will present your respective arguments?
We made the offer to have a oral argument following the filing of the briefs, but it is at the discretion of this commission whether they feel that's necessary or not. But we made the offer that might be appropriate if this commission considers it. If this commission decides to rule on the briefs sua sponte without any hearing, that's the commission's discretion to do so.
Mr. Seitz, I think there's some validity to the points that the petitioner is making about the questions regarding the commission's power and authority, which you have gone to frequently during the course of these hearings. And so I guess the question I have for you at this juncture, and where things stand, don't you agree that there would be some utility to having this brief? And I guess my real question to you is, what prejudice would there be to you and to the other interveners who are opposing this if the commission were to entertain this one?
First of all, in the motion, there are no citations to any cases or anything of any sort. And the reason for that is because those cases really don't pertain to what you're called upon to do in this case. And as far as I know, there is no comparable statutory construct in other states. There is no law. Really, this is a case of first impression in many respects. Now, generally speaking, if you're going to make decisions on cases of first impression, I would want you to be as well informed as you could be. And you have your own counsel there for that purpose. We have argued existing administrative rules, existing statutes, and existing constitutional provisions, which we believe speak for themselves. Now, how you're going to interpret them and apply them in this case is really your job, but we have suggested how they do apply. If in fact, based upon our suggestions, if we argue this case and you deliberate and you determine that you then need additional briefing on certain issues over and above the 200 pages which Horton has given you and the 30 or so pages we've given you, then by all means, I think you should ask for it at that point in time, because we do not want you to decide this case and create a record that is inadequate. However, my belief is that you have everything that you can be given, and that together with the oral arguments that will be presented to you that were scheduled to be given today, my belief is there is nothing that 2 weeks of additional research at this point in time is going to turn up that will assist you. But again, it's your prerogative. Never would I say, if you think you have questions that are unanswered, that you need additional input from the parties on, I would never oppose that. But my opposition this morning is predicated upon the fact that these issues have been raised again and again and again every time we've gathered, and I think we've given you everything that's out there. As far as prejudice is concerned, at this point we do have a concern about the deadline. We also have a concern about 2 of you whose terms are due to expire. And in our view, a change of personnel of the board after we've been through such an extensive hearing process would be detrimental to any party, the prevailing party as well as the losing party. So those are concerns. We would like to get this matter resolved. And to that end, we have been very respectful of the demands for scheduling and completing witnesses and so forth, which have been imposed upon us and which the petitioners themselves have been pushing for. So we're at this point, we think we can go forward.
Thank you. Commissioners, what's your pleasure on this motion?
Move to approve motion for the chair.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Heller?
Thank you. I appreciate the concerns that have been raised about not unduly delaying this proceeding. And I do note that although there have been some recent Supreme Court decisions, there's also been certainly an awareness in this case that we had a constitutional issue that's been in existence for a long time. So I think if we're going to grant this motion, we should set some pretty tight time frames so as not to unduly delay the decision-making process. I would suggest something in the ballpark of the petitioner to file whatever they're going to file by not later than the close of business this coming Friday, and then give the other parties a reasonable amount of time to respond to it. I don't want to see this turn into a significant delay that would disrupt our schedule. And if necessary, we can set a special meeting in June to get back on track in terms of catching up with when the decision-making should be finalized.
I'll say this, it is a little bit frustrating, the timing of this motion. Notwithstanding that, I do think there is some utility in the points that have been raised, particularly about the last 2 decisions by the state Supreme Court regarding actions taken by the Commission that had to do expressly with our powers and authorities are concerning. And from my standpoint only, I think that there is merit to having a complete record. And because of this issue of the constitutionality of our authority in this instance regarding the redistricting of agricultural land has been a theme with the interveners in opposition to the petition. I do think it is important that we have as complete a record as possible. That said, I completely agree with Commissioner Heller on the timing issues, and I will tell everybody, parties and public alike, that as chair, I will not allow for this matter to be pushed into the next constituted commission. This matter will be decided by the currently constituted commission. I will not ask new appointees to take on the obligation of reviewing the record here. And I will not ask the commission as it's constituted to delay a decision on a matter that's been before us now literally for years. So I do put everyone on notice that if this motion passes, this matter will be decided before the end of June. And so with that, I think it makes sense to clarify now. The chair will offer a friendly amendment that if this motion passes, that the petitioner is to have briefings submitted by this Friday, May 25th, and that any response or opposition will be submitted by Monday, June 4th.
Could we have Monday, just Tuesday, Monday's a holiday, Tuesday, just a weekend to work on it, because 3 days, I mean, we don't want to make this in July, but we'll cooperate with the commission, but could we have the weekend to work on this?
Mr. Kudo, I'm going to stick with the deadline as scheduled. And the reason being, this is your motion. I don't want to put the interveners into a position where they are then going to be pressed for time in responding. The response is the difficult part. The motion is the part. I'm sure that you folks have already substantively outlined at least. I'm not going to put the interveners into a position where they're going to be pressed for time. And I understand that that's going to put some difficulties on you folks, and I'm sorry for that. But again, it is your motion. You're asking for this, and that's an appropriate time. So again, to be clear, brief by Friday the 25th, opposition, reply, beautiful. With that, Mr. Sauerkraut, you poll.
Yeah, the amended motion to grant petitioner's motion for leave for the parties to submit written legal briefs and for hearing within the time frame so indicated by the chair. Commissioner Chong?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Judge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tevis?
Yes.
Commissioner Contreras?
No.
Commissioner Makua?
Aye.
Commissioner Heller?
Yes.
And Chair Lacy.
Yes.
Chair, we have 8 votes in support of the motion.
Thank you.
Excuse me, 7 votes in support of the motion.
Obviously, that changes today's agenda significantly. We will move now, though, directly into public testimony because this is a noticed hearing. We will still take public testimony to ask folks to keep in mind that you will have an opportunity to provide public testimony on the issue of approval or denial of the petition when that matter is taken up at the next hearing on this matter. Dr. Dudley, have a question?
Mr. Chair, we really have great concern about trying to get this done by the end of June. Is it possible that you could set a hearing date now?
We can't do that right now, Dr. Dudley. It depends on availability of commissioners. But as I said on the record, I will ensure that a hearing is set before the end of June and that a decision is made on this petition before the end of June.
Okay. Good. Sir, I really thank you. We're very concerned. Very concerned. Thank you.
We'll first call the 4 individuals who did not have an opportunity to testify at the last hearing on this docket. So if you step forward, please. Thad Sprague, Peter Bukowski, Jesse Rivera, and Elaine Camp. Right here. For any of those 4 individuals here who wish to rise, step up, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here more.
I'm sorry, I need this swear you first.
Is it this one?
I need this swear.
Okay.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Jessica Rivera. My address is 66-102 Holly Road, Hawaii, and 6712. I came here today out of concern for this job issue. I'm concerned that this will bring temporary jobs for a couple of years, and with 80,000 more people on this island, will they take our jobs after that? My next question is, how will this affect surrounding resources in relation to the Waianae Coast and to Nanakuli? And I'm requesting for a thorough water resource investigation on this issue. You know, other islands have springs that have dried up. Will this happen because we will overexhaust our resources? And is D.R. Horton enthusiastically researching this, or do they even care? You know, if we live in Waianae, will our great-grandchildren have this water? Will they have to desalinate? Or will they have jobs? Are these permanent jobs? There is a surplus of housing right now. Why don't we fill those housing before we start building more? The second thing is I'm concerned about the reputation, with all due respect, of D.R. Horton's companies, with all respect to the people that work for D.R. Horton. As I have researched, they have been involved, and this is FBI warranted, with racketeering, predatory lending, tax evasion, tampering with federal informant, accounting fraud, bribery, mortgage, loan fraud. Even a major investment group, CTW, demanded accountability. You can find these articles on CNN and Business Week. So this isn't, they're valid resources. And I would like to list the cases that they have been through. Nevada State Court Case 05-A-503121-C, Fraud and Deceptive Business Practices. California State Case RIC 369796 for Fraud and Deceptive Business Practices. California Federal Case 07-2625 SBA Fraud, Deceptive Business Practices, etc., etc. In Florida, Truth and Lending Violations. Georgia Federal Court RA violation. Virginia Federal Court Case Truth and Lending. I'm concerned about the accountability of this company, sincerely. I wonder if they will continue to have accountability in this place. That's all.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Elaine Camp.
May I go last?
Willis Moore. Just as a reminder, you have 2 minutes to present your testimony.
Morning. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Willis Moore. I live in Chinatown, corner of Hotel Bethel Street. Good enough? Okay. All right. I have some concerns in addition to the fact that I'm a member of Sierra Club, and I commend the club for its work in bringing to the fore questions about farmland and agricultural land. I suppose that I'm more associated with a group of people across the street from where we're sitting at Queen Emma Square. Concerns for housing. Where are we going to live, and what is it going to cost us to live there? I've lived on this island now 50 years, and I know what I've had to pay to live here. And I choose to live in Honolulu, where there are no serious housing projects proposed in the affordable range. In a careful personal study of the proposal from D.R. Horton, I find some interesting and some hopeful ideas in what they are proposing to do with the land that you would rezone if you do. So I speak in support of this one project, in saying that it represents a way forward in both housing, affordable housing on the one hand, and the possibilities for gardening and agriculture on the other. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Questions? Thank you for the testimony.
Pearl Johnson, followed by Charles Zahn.
Good morning. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
Pearl Johnson, 2404 Conde Ali Avenue, Honolulu. I wish to remind the Commission that if you change the Ho'opili land designation to urban, you may not ever be able to put it back into agriculture, no matter what B.R. Horton does. The Commission required in 1989 that Bridge Ainalea build over 1,600 affordable housing units. After numerous extensions, delays, reductions in the requirement, Bridge Ainalea came up with just 16 units in 2011, 22 years later. When you tried to revert the land back to agriculture, the judge ruled that you could not. Even if Horton were to abandon plans to put houses on this most productive farmland in the state, the fertile soil may already have been scraped off and replaced with coral. The Department of Hawaiian Homelands has already done that with its acreage adjacent to Ho'opili. Agriculture would have been scraped forever from this precious farmland if you grant this petition, even as future generations need more locally produced food. I thank the Commission for pledging to decide with the present membership. It certainly appeared to me that the petitioner was commissioner shopping. Please protect the future of our islands by refusing to grant the urban designation. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you.
Charles Zahn, followed by Glenn O'Milda.
Confirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Charles Zahn. I live at 92970 Puanini Street in Hapakilo, 96707. Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Land Use Commission. I am a member of the Makakilo Kapolei Honkai Holly Neighborhood Board number 34 and the president of the Pu'upalahu Association, which is an association of homeowners. The Pacific Business News, in an editorial on February 17, 2012, stated, "At the end of the day, we think the benefits of these projects outweigh the potential risks. We are not willing to support significant housing development in even a few areas of Oahu. We'd better start coming up with a strategy to slow the population growth that is projected to be coming our way. That's a direction we would rather not see Oahu go." I fully agree with the PBN editorial. I know there have been arguments about agriculture, infrastructure, traffic, etc. Some opponents of Ho'opili have made their money and live very comfortably, while others struggle to find a place to live, play, and work. Ho'opili will work well with the new University of Hawaii, West Oahu, the Kroc Center, a shopping center being developed by the Bartolo Development, and the U.S. Veterans Administration's intentions to have a private developer build a 160,000 square foot VA clinic. Working together will increase the quality of life for the residents of the Leeward community. It will provide jobs and homes. With at least 20 years to finally build out, there's plenty of time to allow any appropriate modifications to be made. Traffic patterns to be changed because more Ho'opili residents will work in the Kapolei area, and others will be able to use the rapid transit system that will be developed. Ho'opili was designed by and for the people of West Oahu. I know I speak for hundreds of local working families when I say Ho'opili will be a dream come true for us. The Star Advertiser's online poll on 3/4/2012 showed that those responding to the poll, 55% were in favor of Ho'opili. We hope that you listen to us and not those that are playing politics. Thank you for letting me testify.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you,
Thank
testimony,
you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Grant Earl Milner, followed by Stuart Scott.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
Hello, good morning. My name is Glenn Obilda, 911179 Goldmine Street, Neva Beach, 96706. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. I'm currently president of the Neva Beach Community Association, and I wish that you had proceeded with this process this morning. There are two things I'm concerned with. One is the importance of agricultural lands, and the other one is the planning process. The agricultural lands is important because there's nobody in this room, I guess. My family has farmed that land for over 100 years. My family. When that thing was totally in sugar. My grandfather, my father, my wife's father, my wife's grandfather, all worked on the sugar land. And there's nobody in this room can tell you that there's no more fertile land in the whole state than Ho'opili. And I lend you this contention that, as far as I'm concerned, there shouldn't be any. They talk about Mauka of the freeway in Kunia. Kunia is not fertile as much as Ho'opili. It's been long used in pineapple, and pineapple hasn't been mitigated. The lands haven't been mitigated in all these years. There's heptachlor. There's other concerns that the land hasn't been mitigated that would cause damage to the crops that are grown on the ground. The other one, number two, I have lived in Eva Beach for almost 30 years, and I've gone to, I've been actively involved with all the committees and the associations in Eva Beach. And I can tell you that the process of planning has never been implemented. I can tell you, number one, that the Eva Development Plan, the city planning department has always favored Ho'opili. They never once came to the community. The Eva Development Plan is 10 years from having public review. It's never been public review. In fact, it never came before the public since it was accepted in 1997. And the other one is the Oahu General Plan. So there's two plans that are coming before the public in almost at the end of the year or by next year. So there's a lot of concerns about planning in the area. And I think it's not sufficiently been done. So Ho'opili, I think, should take into consideration the planning process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you, sir.
Stuart Scott, followed by Lynn Kobayashi. Just as a reminder, it's 2 minutes, 2-minute limit of testimony.
You affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Stuart Scott. I live in Honolulu at 2801 N2 Lot E Road in Honolulu, back at the road. Is there any other question? No?
No, sir. Go ahead.
That's it. Dear Commissioners, when all is said and done in these proceedings, both reason and law underscore the imperative that you deny D.R. Horton's petition to proceed with its well-promoted but ill-conceived Ho'opili development. Of all the reasons for denying this petition, the following I consider the most important ones. The land in question was designated by the City Council to be included in consideration as important agricultural lands, in caps. The City Council makes the laws, not the Office of Planning, not the Department of Planning and Permitting, allowing these lands to be rezoned from agricultural to urban or yet more suburban sprawl at this point, before final inclusion of these lands in the prime A or B classification of important agricultural lands flies in the face of de facto recognition of their importance to food production on this island and in the state, which has been well established in the testimony you've received. The focus on further housing development should be in the existing urban core, build up, not out. avoid traffic congestion, pollution, stress and tension in commuters, and a raft of other ills by reducing and eliminating commute times. Do not create more of the same ills. And certainly don't pave over important agricultural lands in pursuit of quick profits. The city and county recognizes this and has turned its attention in this direction, avoiding more urban sprawl. The LNR testimony from Deputy Director William Tam casts serious doubt on the sufficiency of aquifers to support the additional increment of suburban sprawl, especially with the additional loss of recharge of the Pearl Harbor aquifer, specifically from the paving over of these lands and runoff of rain versus the percolation of agricultural irrigation. Mr. Tam urged you to make long-term decisions and not continue the short-term thinking that it's progressively painting us into a tighter and tighter corner. Perhaps most importantly, the LUC has a mandatory obligation to conserve and protect agricultural lands under the Hawaii State Constitution, Article 11, Section 3, HRS 205-4.5A, and HRS 226-7A.
Excuse me, your 2 minutes are up.
I will wrap very quickly, okay? Thank you. There's another point of law of Constitution I cite, but let's go to my last comment. These approximately 1,500 acres of uniquely productive agricultural lands must be compared not to the bulk of agricultural lands in the state of all types, characters, terrains, hydrological conditions, etc. Such comparison would metaphorically be one of apples to cactus. Rather, you must compare the subject lands to comparably productive lands with similar access, fertility, sunlight, water availability, etc. With such apples-to-apples comparison, subject lands represent a major percentage of the prime A lands. According to the State Department of Agriculture's own data, the subject 1,500 acres produce over 40% of the locally grown and consumed food on this island. These are not export tourist pineapples, but rather corn, melon, squash, citrus, ginger, and countless other food species that we eat here on Oahu, and upon which we will increasingly depend in many future scenarios. I therefore respectfully urge you to comply with the well-reasoned briefs of the interveners against the current docket and with your constitutional obligations to deny the petitioner A.P.R. Horton's application. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Lynn Kobayashi, followed by Cindy Green.
Good morning. You affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Lynn Kobayashi. My address is 33908 Kalihi Street. I just come here as a private citizen concerned about the future of our state. After attending a few of your hearings over the past few weeks, two observations have become clear to me. First, your original mission, as defined by statute law, is to work to preserve agricultural lands. Second, this mega development will irreversibly devastate fragile resources. Soil and water experts have brought before you compelling evidence of this. There's a lot riding on your decision. On the one hand, a lot of money to be made by developers, out-of-state investors, and their aggregate industries. And on the other, preservation of the best soil for growing food in the entire state, as well as a significantly large area of open land to replenish our water supply. I don't know who you are, but one thing we all have in common is that you and I have accepted Hawaii as our home, and Hawaii has made all of us welcome here. My hope is that you'll make the decision that your mission compels you to make. You'll make a decision that you can be proud of. You'll make a decision that will give you an urge one sunny day to take a drive out to the Elo Plain, where you can survey a productive, fertile, expansive green. And you can tell your kids and your grandkids, I did that. I stood up for that. I fought for that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sadie Green, followed by Donovan Lewis.
You affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Sadie Green, and I live at 1450 Young Street in Honolulu. Aloha. I'm here as a concerned citizen and resident of Oahu. I am opposed to the development of Ho'opi'i because of the long-term and irreversible damage that it will cause to the environment, economy, and community of Oahu. The developers will be the big winners here. And don't be confused, because big bucks for a small percentage of people is what this is really all about. The idea that we need to develop this prime agricultural land is illogical, especially here on an island such as Oahu that, one, has a global economy based in tourism and in the enjoyment of the natural resources that we have here, and two, that is so food insecure. We've all heard the statistics about how much food we bring from outside of this island and the need that we have to produce more of what we're consuming here. We need to preserve and malama our natural resources. We need to think in the big picture and long term for the children and the future children of this place. Yes, we need houses and we need jobs, but the big developers like Horton, who have a history of predatory lending and fraud across this country, across the U.S., who pass the blame and costs onto the subcontractors and have little to no regard for the preciousness of the aina and the water that they wish to build upon, are not the ones we should look to provide this relief. With limited resources that this community has, let us be accountable to the future generations by saying no. Our community, our economy, our food security depend on it. This kind of developmental model is destructive. By rezoning this land, we will create only short-term job opportunities, but long-term damage to the community and the environment in which we thrive. Thank you.
Parties, questions?
Donovan Lewis, followed by Chris Camarillo.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? Please state your name and your address.
My name is Donovan Lewis, 91-1035 Haulele Street, Kapolei, Hawaii, 96707. Aloha Chair and members of the State Land Use Commission. Good morning. My name is Donovan Lewis. I'm testifying today as a resident of the Makakilo Kapolei area for 34 years. I believe that I can speak in behalf of a large portion of residents in the area because of my different hats that I wear in the community. Besides being a resident, I also served as a bishop at the Makakilo Ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I also was involved in Boy Scouts, Little League President, community associations, Makakilo Kapolei Neighborhood Board, when my wife served as a member and a chairman, and as a high school and college basketball official. I believe that through my conversations with the various entities, and I don't represent those entities, but the people who belong to it in the area, that they have the same sentiments that I do, that we need to continue to develop the area to improve our living conditions with affordable housing that was promised to me over 34 years ago. Most of the residents of the area that I associate with are mid-age and young couples with families. They moved into the area like me many years ago because that is what we could afford. And it brought the promise of a better tomorrow. I believe that the project will help many young families to reach the reality of living and working in the area, and that they should help alleviate some of the traffic woes. I am also a father of 6 children. I'm a master plumber by trade, and being in the construction business, I have witnessed over the years good times and down times. I am in support of this whole pili project because it will bring jobs to my children, my grandchildren, and other area residences as well. And it will bring much needed jobs to the construction industry, revenue for area businesses, and to the state and county. I do sympathize that we need land to farm, but I believe that the families that will move into this development will have the option to farm themselves in their backyard, which the developer has included as an option, which I believe will bring much excitement to every family and their lifestyle. I do humbly ask that you do approve this project and others planned in the area for the sake of our future. Mahalo. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you.
Chris Camarillo, followed by Ricky Cassidy.
What I have to say today will be the
Point. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Hello, Christopher Keliiwaihoikeone Camarillo. Grew up at 1428 William Street, Clayton, Hawaii. Wow. Your learning is like, this is just suicide. Economists around the world will agree that there are two resources that can't be replaced. One is prime agricultural land, the other is water. Your Horton has no idea how to do that. Other developments in Eva Beach I've checked out, and I've been, I've stayed at, and they're for it. They're ticky-tacky little boxes built on top of each other. They're not affordable by what I make. I don't know how many people are going to be working for D.R. Horton to eventually afford to live in one of those houses. But bottom line is, yes, your obligation is to preserve agriculture. Bottom line, do your jobs. Thank you.
I know everybody's enthusiastic, but I'd ask both supporters and opponents, please give your applause. Thank you.
Ricky Cassidy, followed by Sydney Hiba. Ricky Cassidy. Sydney Hiba. Followed by Barry Hahn.
Morning. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Please state your name and your address.
Sydney Higa, 92-739 Makakilo Drive. I've been a resident of Makakilo for over 30 years. My parents, my grandparents came over from Okinawa 100 years ago to work in sugarcane fields. My father was a Marine in the Marines. When he came back from Korea, he worked for the sugar plantation. My family has been in farming. They used to have a taro farm in Kalu. Nowhere in time did they intend all of us kids to continue the farming business because it's hard work, very laborious. They wanted us to become professionals. I spent 24 years in the military. My last tour of duty was on the Commander-in-Chief of the syntax staff. My daughter is now in the Air Force Reserves. Her husband is in the Air Force. They're fortunate that they live in Bickham. They have base housing there. But when they get out, what's going to happen? I have 4 little grandsons. I get to see them. I get to take them fishing. I get to attend their birthday parties. If there are no jobs when they get out of the military, they're going to be going to the mainland. They're not going to be staying here. I'm for full pili because there's a future for jobs. There's a future for housing. And anybody here that thinks that just keeping this land in agriculture is going to protect our food supply, they haven't done their research in technology. I'm working with a shrimp farmer right now who's looking to export shrimp to other countries. One of the things that we found is called extensive farming, to where you can grow up to 1 million pounds of shrimp on 1 acre of land. There's technology that's coming down the road that will allow us to have more than enough food for our food security in different ways than just protecting this land. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Larry Hahn, followed by Victoria Cannon. Victoria Cannon.
Morning. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Victoria Cannon, 92-102 O Lower Place, it's OLOA Place in Makakilo. Good morning, Commissioners. Once again, I thank you for this opportunity. I oppose this petition to reclassify this ag land. I really just want to emphasize today that there's a lot of deception here in the room and in the public. I'm not going to say where it's coming from. We are forgetting that the Eva Development Plan clearly points out on page 211, there are already 34
12,805 homes already zoned and planned and shovel ready. We do not need these 11,500 homes. We already have 34,000 just in the Everplain alone. If you want to add the 12,000 homes at Waiwa by Gentry and the other 3,500 in Royal Kunia, Launani Valley, that's already, we're over the limit that the public decided on. We don't need these homes on this important ag land. We have plenty of homes already planned, zoned, and ready to be built. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Alfonso Oliver, followed by Phyllis Cation.
Morning. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, it
Please
is.
state your name, your address, and
Alfonso Oliver, 91-2020, La Hapona Place, Upper Beach, Hawaii, 96706. I just have a short testimony. I just support Hope Me Project. I've lived in Upper Beach over 20 years. I have a daughter that just graduated. She's going to college. She expressed to me one day she would like to buy a home, live by us, have grandchildren that I can visit, that I don't have to go to the mainland to see them. And I know Whole PD has been a very well sought out and project. I followed it from the beginning, and I just support Whole PD 100%. And I think that they're doing a great job of informing the public. As I said, I live in Ever Beach at the community meetings that I have attended. And we are very well planned and sought out. Thank you.
parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Thank you.
Phyllis Casher, followed by Midori Rapongwan.
Morning. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? Please state your name, your address, and
Phyllis Catcher, 3652 Beaver Place, Honolulu, Hawaii. My name is Phyllis Catcher. Aloha, members of the Land Use Commission. I'm testifying in favor of Ho'opili. I served as president of the Waikele Community Association for 7 years, and I'm here today to attest to the track record of D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton is the right developer for this project. From start to finish at Waikele, they kept their promises and always put people before profits. Even when the recession hit and the sales were very, very slow, Mike Jones and D.R. Horton Schuler always kept their promises and always acted with aloha. When D.R. Horton Schuler completed their last home in Waikele, the community looked absolutely beautiful. They won a number of Outdoor Circle awards and awards from the ULI and a lot of other prestigious organizations. A lot of the children that grew up in a D.R. Horton Schuler home have bought another D.R. Horton home, again, attesting to the credibility and the aloha of D.R. Horton. After they finished the last home in Waikele, after about, I think, 8 or 9 years, they left the association in great financial shape. We were able to reduce maintenance fees by over 30%. And we had so much money that the reserve specialist that we hired said that we needed to spend it or we had to give it back to the owners. That's the type of track record that this organization has. They've always put the people before profits, even when it hurt their own company. They did what was right. And in response to the previous person that testified, these weren't ticky-tacky homes that they built. These are $80,000 homes, but they were 2-bedroom, 1.5 townhomes, Cape Cod architecture, absolutely beautiful. And a lot of the homes have yards. And 20 years later, after people lived in those homes, they were able to sell them from $80,000 to $300,000 now. I understand the concerns raised by some of the opponents regarding the loss of farmland. As I've testified before, my parents and grandparents were all farmers, and I understand some of the concerns, but D.R. Horton Schuler has a 40-year track record of success and keeping their promises. I very respectfully ask that you please have the courage and vision to approve Ho'opili. Thank you very much.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you.
Midori Rapongwan, followed by Georgette Stevens.
Morning. You affirm the testimony you're about to be able to state your name, your address,
And my name, address, and the middle. Oh,
your
okay.
name and address.
My name is Midori Rumpungwar. That's RUMPUNGWR. And I live in IAM 98-114 LIPOA Place, IAM. Yeah, I was born into an orphanage in foster care in California, and I was sent out here 17 years ago for continuing the foster care and transitional housing. So I kind of didn't really have like anyone to kind of look up to because it was so packed and stuff like that. And so I like to think of myself as an observer who kind of watch people and like let the people be the example for me because I don't have anyone else to kind of like lead me the way. So looking around, I see a lot of good people in here, and I really do appreciate everyone's mana'o and everyone's pulling on it to be here and try to do the right thing. But I see so many, from all of my friends living in Eva Beach for about 15 years, there's a lot of foreclosed houses in there. I wonder how many foreclosed houses are in Eva Beach alone. We talk about having, how we need housing for these people and jobs for people too, but there's so many empty space here. And it's not so much, even with food security, you see all these people on the roadside. It's not that we don't have enough food to feed them or enough space to shelter them in, but more so because we don't have enough money to do it. We use so much of our time to make this money, to make these profits, and in the end we have so much stuff, we have so many things that we don't even know what to do with. And so I guess I'm here to ask you, what not only what your future look like and what does it look like to us around us, but a little bit about, I mean, is it as green as the grass or is it as white as these walls? I'm here to ask you, how come we only talk about housing, but we have so much space left? I mean, why don't we just fill up the spaces in there? Is my time running out? Okay. You give me that look, so I know that look. I get it a lot. So I'll finish up. We have bigger houses, but smaller families. More conveniences, but less time. We have more degrees, but less sense. More knowledge, but less judgment. More experts, but more problems. More medicines, but less healthiness. We've been all the way to the moon and back, but have trouble crossing the street to meet the new neighbor. We built more computers to hold more information, to produce more copies than ever, but have less communication. We have become long on quantity but short on quality. These are times of fast foods but slow digestion. Tall men but short character. Steep profits but shallow relationships. It's a time when there is much in the window but nothing in the room. That's Paradox of Our Age by Horton. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? We'll take a short break now. Thank you. Thank you for your time. We'll take a short break for our
Heavy baby.
Tell me about it. You know, on camera? It's my celebration.
Confirm the testimony you're about to give. State your name and your address.
Georgette Stevens, PO Box 754. Aloha, members of the Land Use Commission. I am here to support D.R. Horton's Ho'opili community in East Kapolei. I have been a member of the Ho'opili Task Force since its inception, and the reality is that it has been way too long a wait to get this project started. My daughter was 3 years old when we first started, and now she is 9. We need Ho'opili to get started, and now. First of all, I want to thank you for the time and consideration you have put into this process. Listening to many passionate people on both sides, and then having to make the decision either way is, I am sure, not an easy task. I have come before you many times, and you have heard my pleas, but today I'm here to tell you about our task force committee. We have approximately 30 people that participate on the committee, and they represent the communities of Kapolei, Waipahu, and Ewa Beach. In the beginning, we met on a monthly basis. We were given the opportunity to share what we would like Ho'opili to be through a charrette process. We learned a lot about the varying styles of housing development, like smart communities and transit-oriented development. They provided professional people from Hawaii and abroad to help us to understand many processes, including permitting. We are now equipped to be better decision makers in the residential development process. We want Ho'opili in our community because it provides a place where we can come together, which is what Ho'opili means, coming together. This is where we can fellowship with our neighbors and build a strong community, especially with the growth of UH West Oahu and the upcoming public schools planned surrounding D.R. Horton's development. We already have a church, the Salvation Army's Croc Center, and then the Barlow Shopping Center is on its way. Let us not forget the rail is being built as we speak. So with all of this, we need homes. Please approve D.R. Horton's request. Mahalo.
For these questions, commissioners, thank you for your testimony.
Vern Ta'a, followed by D'Angelo McIntyre.
You affirm the testimony you're about to give to you the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and your address and proceed.
Vernon Tawa, 1028 Keliiwaihoikeone Street, Kapolei, one home.
D'Angelo
I'm retired member
McIntyre.
of the Plumbers and Fitters Union, 675. It's pretty obvious why a lot of us are here. What may not be obvious, however, is the basic principle which I follow. And I belong to an organization that follows the same principle, and that is, we believe that plants and animals were created from man and not the other way around. My great-grandfather, I'm a native Hawaiian, my great-grandfather built the first koi factory out in Laie, changed the whole lifestyle of all the people in Laie. Each family in Laie had their own taro patch, and it was hard to pound the koi every day to eat the koi that we liked. My great-grandfather built the koi factory, it changed the lifestyle. Today, when Brigham Young University moved into Laie, all the campus that is close to the temple was all taro patch and sugarcane fields to the left. There are no taro patches anymore. Things changed. It changed because everybody's here. And we have been adjusting for over hundreds and hundreds of years as Native Hawaiians. And we're still changing. It's a treat for me to go get a bag of koi. Sometimes I feel like my kids can't afford to be Hawaiian anymore. But I enjoy koi. It doesn't taste as good as when my grandfather made it, but I still enjoy it on occasion today. I have to get used to it. My favorite now is garlic mashed potato. My grandkids love macaroni and cheese. That's what they're raised on. We have to adjust. People are the basic principle of why we work in the unions too. And I appreciate D.R. Horton for putting on the demonstration they had last week. I participated in it. There was one lady who said that nothing can grow in the backyard in Hawaiian homes because they took the dirt away. She has my address. Come to my house. I'll show you the banana trees, the sweet potato, the taro, the lettuce, and all of the other stuff that I grow in my backyard in Hawaiian homes. Please, please, accept the premise, the principle, basic principle, common sense principle. People are more important than plants and animals. Thank you.
Questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony.
D'Angelo McIntyre, followed by Scott Cooney.
Morning. You affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address.
My name is D'Angelo McIntyre, and I live 91-1010 Maka'aloa Street, apartment B. It's in Eva Beach, Hawaii. Okay. I first wanted to start off my testimony with an apology for some profane language that I used the last time with an older lady, and I really apologize for that, and I hope you guys can forgive me. And if she is in here, I am sorry. With that being said, when the atmosphere in Hawaiian Islands airspace is unstable, it can produce a thunderstorm in normal conditions on the island. But lately we have been seeing a phenomenon known as urban heat island, to be referred here as UHI, take effect. And UHI is a metropolitan area which is significantly warmer than its surrounding rural areas. It goes like this. A thunderstorm is approaching. Storms feed off heat to be powered. It comes into contact with a source of immense heat like an urban concrete jungle, and the storm becomes supercharged. We have tons of stored extra heat from asphalt, glass, and concrete all over the island, which do not radiate heat back into the atmosphere as fast as the natural dirt and vegetation is replaced. Rather, it holds it in much longer. Thus, at night, when land usually radiates heat back into the sky, the UHI is holding it in just a little longer. The weather we've experienced in recent years has been reflecting these effects. On Friday, the 9th of March, 2012, a tornado touched down in what was called unprecedented wacky weather on the windward side of all islands. Hailstones some 2 inches in diameter fell on Kaneohe. Residents in the area from Kaneohe to Waimanalo had never witnessed weather as severe as that. The frequent cloud to ground lightning and the hails and the tornadoes are not normal Oahu weather. Even though that same storm hit other islands first, such as Molokai and Maui first, it became significantly more intense when it encountered Oahu's airspace. It is the addition of all the extra concrete, glass, and metal giving off more heat than the natural land they replaced that is causing, in my eyes, more frequent and unusual makahiki weather. Have you ever walked barefoot on the sidewalk and had to jump into the grass to keep from burning your feet? What I'm getting at is Ho'opili would just be one more source in a sea of urban development that is already fueling the violent weather here on Oahu.
Could you wrap it up, please?
Yes. And lastly, Ho'opili is entirely too close to Schofield to not be occupied by military personnel. It would be foolish to think that a subdivision of almost 12,000 homes that sits in between Schofield and Pearl Harbor would not welcome and host hundreds of military, not local families. For every tree is known by its fruits, for men do not gather figs from thorns, nor do they gather grapes from a bramble bush. Please think about this before you make your decision, and vote no to Ho'opili. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimonies.
Scott Cooney, followed by Pat Patterson.
You affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth. State your name, your address, and proceed.
Thank you to the Commission. Thanks to all interested parties. I think we are all united in wanting what's best for Hawaii, and I appreciate the viewpoints of everyone in the room. We all have parts to play in Hawaii's future. I'm a business consultant. I'm sorry.
State your name.
Sorry, forgot that important detail. My name is Scott Cooney. I live at 3731 Hanaina Avenue in Honolulu.
Thank you.
I'm a business consultant. I've worked for Walmart, GE, NBC Universal, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, and most recently Eastman Chemical, large Fortune 500 companies, are all looking to their long-term vision. And now I teach at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in a business school. I'm teaching the MBA program. And what I'm here to testify about is the long-term economics of Ho'opili. What we're looking at is short-term job development. There will be some good jobs for a short period of time. In the long run, we have more strip malls, more McDonald's, more franchises, and more of our money leaving the state. When more of our money leaves the state, we have less jobs. That is just the truth. Governor Abercrombie likes to say that our number one export is cash, and it is, because we keep exporting all of our cash for the 90% of energy that we import and the 90% of food that we import. That doesn't create jobs for Hawaii, that creates jobs elsewhere. We need jobs here. We need long-term jobs, not short-term jobs. So I hope whatever is being paid to the laborers for the next year and a half that they're developing D.R. Horton homes is enough to set you up for retirement, because after that, you'll probably be looking for a new job. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you.
Pat Patterson, followed by Jesse Ponce de Leon.
Morning. From the testimony you're about to give, the truth. State your name, your address.
I am Patricia Patterson, usually known as Pat, and I live at Makaha Valley Plantation. And thank you for allowing me to be here this morning to share. I also bring greetings from Alice Greenwood, who is the director of our Concerned Elders of Waianae. I am against developing the Ho'opili project. We need all the agricultural land possible to grow our good food now and into the future. We also need ag land for all the young farmers we are growing. At Mr. Gigi's Ho'aina o Makaha, where the science projects of the students at Makaha Elementary School are carried out. At Kahumana, where young people come from the mainland and learn how to farm, as well as some of our local youngsters. And at the well-known Maho Farms, who are growing farms, and they also are enrolled in Leeward Community College, Waianae. So we do need land for farmers as well as for food. But especially what I want to ask you is, why do we want to pave over that particular piece of land? It's unique. You know you can grow 4 seasons of crops at that land. And we don't want to let that go, please.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you, ma'am. You can give the order, sir. Thank you.
Jesse Ponce de Leon, followed by Alice Fisher.
Morning. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
You state your name, address, and proceed.
My name is Jesse Ponce de Leon. I'm at 1541 Kalakaua Avenue, Honolulu. Number one, I want to congratulate and thank everybody here and the commission for, I'm sure, the diligent effort of trying to make the honest result. I may not agree with some of you, but I want to thank you anyway. We hope that all of you folks that are on the commission that truly believe that the decisions that you made are for the community. It's very difficult when people, the economy, of course, this is a military base, and the second is supposedly tourism. And now, because of the economics here, we have our beaches at Waikiki full of Staphylococcus or MRSA. We have 5 years ago when I filmed Walter Riddy at the People's House, the Capitol, and complaining about the GMOs and where our farms were going. And that's 5 years ago. We're now continuing this effort of trying to bring to the forefront. Is this sustainable? This continual construction and construction, and we can't go back and fix the infrastructure. I remember when UH was having trouble fixing their toilets, but we now have a chancellor that's $440,000 a year. So again, I hope that all of you really look at this for the betterment of the INA, for food, for sustainability, and really for our own well-being, because we need to take life a lot more serious now and cut back on all of these type of expenses that we don't need. So please keep that in mind, and again, thank you again for everything that you're trying to do. Mahalo.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Alice Fisher, followed by Cynthia Frith.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth? Thank you. State your name, your address.
My name is Alice B. Fisher, and I live at 4300 Wailoi Avenue in Honolulu, and I'm here in opposition to the DR Horton request. Our appearance on the earth occurred because the one-celled organisms from which we are descended had oxygen and water as well as the other component, which is food, which enabled the formation of the animal species. In view of this, please note that the Oahu water table has been falling, according to the scientific investigations, for many years. I think it's 1916 that it started, but I didn't have that just from memory, nothing. And this will be made worse by such buildings as are proposed for Ho'opili, because it uses the water up. It doesn't provide more water in any way, and the water is not useful. Most of it, maybe there's a little peripheral farming, but most of it will be used for toilets and baths, and cooking and drinking, and maybe watering lawn, houses, anyway. And then the other component of this is oxygen, and it is really not far-fetched at all to point out that our oxygen is being depleted by burning fossil fuels. And in fact, some of us wonder why scientists aren't rioting in the street and pointing out that the human race may run out of oxygen. It sounds cataclysmic, and it would be. But people also point out that the tipping point has occurred in the burning and the excess of fossil fuel, and it's going to become more and more dangerous to burn it as the oxygen gets used up. And there's more to this than I can possibly go in, and you have been extremely patient, and I know I'm talking in much broader terms than just wishing that our grandchildren would have houses to live in. But this is really what lies ahead. And as I said, I think maybe the scientists aren't rioting because of two factors. And one is they think nobody will believe them, and the other is because sometimes we kill the messengers. And Galileo, after all, was on house arrest the last 8 years of his life. I know this sounds strange and peculiar compared to all this other, but this is what I'm worried about. I'm afraid my great-grandchildren will die. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Cynthia Frith, followed by Lucas Miller.
Morning.
Morning.
You affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
Okay, my name is Cynthia Frith, and I live at 42-128 Cocoa Place in Kailua, 96734. I'm here to talk about what we say and what we actually do, because they're often two very different events. Take, for example, our state constitution, which clearly promotes not only the virtues, but the sheer necessity of perpetuating productive farmlands for future generations. The words like green, sustainability, and retention for our keiki are phrases and thoughts bandied about not only by our elected officials, but those appointed to assume a stewardship role in this process. Then reality sets in. The reality of very valuable land, legally owned by an experienced developer who must get the zoning changed on this currently productive prime ag land to urban, so that a master plan, a plan that was created many years ago and set into motion, supposedly, this will halt development in other parts of Oahu, which I suggest is total nonsense. Developers make their money by developing, and the incentive for ever-creeping sprawl is built into the political system. Only the LUC has the ability and hopefully the foresight and tenacity to choose this prime farmland over the tempting but overreaching goals of D.R. Horton. We don't need to sacrifice this land to the developer gods. Thousands of homes are already in the pipeline, and we know infrastructure will be stretched beyond capacity, no matter what D.R. Horton fancies as his garden community. Thank you very much.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Lucas Miller, followed by Elaine Tan.
Aloha. Aloha. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Lucas Miller. My address is PO Box 2306, Honolulu, Hawaii 968. I moved to Oahu in 2005, at which point I really got my life on track and started studying education and have been in that field for 4 or 5 years now. I teach environmental awareness primarily, and over the summer I'm going to be teaching an ag training course in Waimanalo. The objective is to train people in self-sufficiency and practices of sustainability, be able to take care of themselves and not be dependent on outside entities. I'm concerned that there's not going to be a place for them to grow food, to farm, in the future, and why bother learning to take care of ourselves if everything's paved over to the point where we have to import 90-some-odd% of our food. We have to be the #1 generator of trash in the world. Thank you for being here and doing what you do and taking so much time to really consider the effect of the continuing pattern of development. Hope you make the right decision.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, thank you for your testimony.
Elaine Tan.
Morning, ma'am. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Elaine Cam, and my box number is PO Box 10102, Honolulu 96816. I firmly oppose whole eating. I do have 2 grandchildren, and I'm considering their futures about and other people who need to eat. If you ever experience food insecurity, many of us have not. And I would like to give you a little idea of what it's like to have that insecurity or famine. And we could last probably for 3 to 5 weeks when we are in the starvation mode. And then what happens is we have malnutrition, epidemics, and then death. Okay, that's kind of morbid, isn't it? And I've gotten this from Mosier, Stephen Mosier's book, A Mother's Ordeal, One Woman's Fight Against China's One-Child Policy. So Some of the things that happened in their place of famine was this mother, they ran out of their rations, and her 2 children were asked not to move at all, because the more you move, the more food you would need. And later when they ran out of food, she asked them to go out and pick these branches from the poplar trees. The leaves were used and soaked and made into pancakes. And the bakers outside, when they saw an opening, they would steal the pancakes and eat it. The thing is, although the pancakes smelled good, the acid ate up their intestines, but still they continued to eat it because there was nothing else to eat. Another example is the village. They ran out of food to even feed their livestock, their pigs, for instance. And so what they would do is they would have the pigs come in, and this is gross, I know, as they were moving their bowels, the pigs were there and trying to find and get the first amount of their BMs to eat. And that's how the pigs were fed. And later on, because they had nothing else to do, they had to kill the pigs to eat that. And the third example is it has to do with cannibalism. Now, when you're in a starvation mode, sometimes when there are 2 or 3-year-old cries in hunger, this couple, the woman couldn't stand it any longer, and she strangled her little youngster, her little girl. And maybe she was trying to put it out from her starvation. And yes, and her husband, she gave her baby to the husband, and he, in his distraught mood, put it in this pot of water that they had all kinds of things that they had foraged in the forest, and then he made his wife eat it. And she felt so bad that she reported him to the authorities, and in China it's very bad to do that. So they executed both of them. And anyway, thank you for your time. I strongly oppose and hope that you will oppose whole pili.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony now.
Is there a Ricky Cassidy here? Or Mary Hahn?
That's the end of the signed up public witnesses. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to provide public testimony? I'd ask anybody who wishes to provide public testimony to step forward now, please. Sorry about that. You affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Anthony Alto, 3946 Lurline Drive, Honolulu. I hadn't planned to testify today, and I apologize. I suspect when you got to the end of your list, you might have thought, thank God we're out of here. As a volunteer, I'm the chair of the Oahu group at the Sierra Club. And this is the third time I've testified before you, and every time I start off with a fairly lengthy thank you. And it's not just a suck up, although I can understand why you might think that. I actually approached nearly two dozen people, asking them to put their names forward for consideration by the governor to be members of this commission. And not one of them agreed to do it. And they all said, it's just too much work, it takes up too much time. So I am, from the bottom of my heart, I really do thank you. It's a thankless task. The reason I'm decided to testify today is I suspect this may be the last chance for public testimony on this issue. And what I wanted to say to you...
Let me just say,
Hello?
that's not
Oh, you want me to stop?
I just don't want there to be any confusion.
Okay. I got bum advice from my attorney, what can I say? What I want, I think the difficulty you guys have is you have these competing interests, which are both very strong and have, they have very strong arguments on their sides. It's hard to sit in this room and to see these many people, these many gentlemen in their brown shirts, and realize that a lot of them, most of them probably, are without work. I know that 50% of the carpenters union don't have jobs. And we've also heard very compelling testimony from people who say that they're afraid their kids and their grandkids won't have anywhere to live. The issue of jobs and housing is a crucial issue, and it's one of the issues that you are required to consider when you look at this petition. And yet, on the other hand, you would have to be blind not to see the desperate need for food-growing farmland. We only grow 8% of our food now. And the damage that has been done to the island by suburban sprawl, and how if we urbanize this piece, we will have a single conurbation from Hawaii Kai to Barbers Point, and there will be no second city. We'll all live in a place called Greater Honolulu, or maybe it'll be called Lesser Honolulu, because there will be no individual communities. We'll have lost something. So at the Sierra Club, what we say is the solution to that is to grow taller and denser, to make the city more city, to make Kapolei more of a real city, because at the moment it's not a city. If I tell my friends I'm going to go out for a night on the town in downtown Kapolei, they laugh at me. There is no downtown Kapolei. If I say I'm going shopping in the second city, they say, what are you talking about? Kapolei is a strip mall. It's a pretty strip mall with palm trees and grass medians, but it's a strip mall. And so what we say, and the other thing we say is, we get the need for housing. The people who are on our side who testified today say, well, there are already 50,000 houses that are zoned and entitled. It's true. But the experts at the city tell us that we actually need 100,000 homes by the year 2030. So we're still short of some, and we're desperately short of affordable housing. So I don't go to meetings and say we should stop development. I don't stop at saying stop or pili. I say we need the homes that DR Horton wants to build. I'm not anti-development, and I get the need for DR Horton to make a profit. It has a bottom line. That's their job. What we say is build taller and denser. And so the last point I'd like to make is, I actually think that by denying this petition, you can push us in the direction of what might ultimately be a win-win-win. Because we at the Sierra Club stand ready to negotiate with DR Horton, with the governor's office, to find somewhere else to put this development. We recognize the need for homes. We recognize the need to create jobs for these people who are sitting in this room. If you say no, that doesn't mean that these homes won't get built. It doesn't mean that these jobs won't be created. What it will say is, DR Horton, sit down with these people, find a way to put this land, the most productive land in the state, permanently into food farming. But you don't have to walk away, you don't have to leave Hawaii having made a huge loss by doing that. That's not their job, they're not a charity. By doing that, you will then encourage them to come and sit at the table with us and with the governor's office and to find somewhere else. The state has all kinds of developments it needs. The state is not in the business of building. The state needs to find private developers. 690 Pohukaina, a 600-story tower in Kaka'ako. Yep, I'm wrapping it up. 690 Pohukaina, a 600-foot tower in Kaka'ako is not being built by the state. There is an RFP out there at the moment looking for developers to build that. We would be very happy to work with Horton to say, let's see if we can get you to be the developer of something like that so that you can make your profits and create the construction jobs and preserve Ho'opi. Thank you.
Parties, questions?
I have a couple.
Space?
Are you aware that some of those discussions about building this project elsewhere have in fact already occurred with the governor's office, that Senator Hee has brought those issues to the governor's office?
Senator Hee hasn't told me so himself, but I have heard via the grapevine, yes.
And are you aware that DR Horton has already been invited to consider those alternatives?
I don't know that for a fact, but I understand, I've heard that there was an offer made, yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Dennis Agee, followed by Esther Roberts.
Morning. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
I'm Dennis Agee. I live at 2920 Ollie Lima Street in Salt Lake area, where there aren't any bars, but there's a golf course. I can't add too much to what the Sierra Club just said preceding me, but I do thank you folks for taking on this thankless job of deciding, making a decision between food and housing. It's difficult. In my opinion, Horton's whole pili development crop represents $30 million per year in property taxes and is a step towards total dependency on imported food for us. That's not a good thing. The property taxes, I notice the mayor's not here, but I think his DEP is here. So that's one issue. After these 1,500 acres of whole pili is gone, about all that will be left of our agriculture industry on Oahu is boutique farming and gardening. That's about it. I urge you to consider encouraging Horton to look right across the highway, which has already been done. We know that. 25,000 acres, Malkov H1 between exit 3 and 5, growing weeds. On Korea, that's valuable property. They eat weeds in Korea, so we've been told. I'm not sure if that's true. I have never been there. But if Horton were to focus its efforts and energies and resources on this less valuable farmland, I think the 12,000 houses could go in just as easily. People that live in Makakilo, they know what kind of, I think it doesn't have to be flat farmland for a house. Now, to the issue of the jobs, how much of a backlog do we need to ensure that every carpenter on this island has a job? It's been testified here today that we've got over 30,000 permits waiting to be built, right in the Evo plate. Interesting that we want to add 12,000 more on the most productive farmland in the county, if not in the state. And the gateway to the new UH campus, with a railroad taking us from downtown Ala Center directly out there. I think there's some other agendas here that as just a common ordinary live below the invisible sea citizen, don't have access to this unless we read the paper very carefully every day, and then we're not going to get it all. So I know you folks have more information just because you've been dealing with this issue for so many years. And I urge you to call it to an end. Horton has options. Save the farmland, make the green land stay green, and the rocky land, they can build all the houses they want on it. And thank you very much for allowing me to say what I have to say today.
Parties, questions? Commissioners? Thank you for your testimony.
Esther Roberts, followed by Pahumanu Muk.
You affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth. Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Esther Roberts. I live at 7012 Hawaii Drive, Unit 704, in Honolulu 96825. I'm an attorney at Kings Lombardi and Pettit, and our firm has worked for Horton. We have for a very long time. But I'm here to speak from a personal viewpoint and about the dream of owning your own home. My first home was a DR Horton Schuler home, and I moved back here from the mainland with that daughter and looking for a place surveyed out in East Honolulu. The only place where we could find an option that was affordable was at a community called Kai in Hawaii Kai. I have 3 children now. I live in another D.R. Horton children's home. And I want to just convey that D.R. Horton cares about people. Not profits, but people. And my experience, soup to nuts, in buying a home first and second time was that they are about quality development and they are about responsible development. I want my children to have an affordable home, and I want that home to be a whole pili. So I urge you to look to their vision and have the courage to support the petition. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners? Thank you for your testimony.
Kahumanu Mook, followed by Ricky Tai.
One. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address, and first name.
Hello, my name is Kahumanu Mook. I reside at 2029 Alawai Boulevard, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96815. And Kanaka Mahuli, like all of us in our hearts are. Thank you, commissioners, for being here. Our lawyers, our leaders of our communities, our union leaders, and all my brothers and sisters out there in the union. I'm here from my heart. The purpose, we're all here. We have a purpose. And the purpose is do what is right. If something is good, continue. If it's broken, we fix it. But if it's good for the future and for the benefit for all of us, continue. Our kapuna, our ancestors would say that. And to my union brothers, and to D.R. Horton and his representatives, forgive me the harsh words and pass that back to all your representatives and staff. This is from the business article in Business Week, and it says, watch out, union. In Iowa, D.R. Horton did not comply with their warranty agreement on a project. D.R. Horton was sued. Then D.R. Horton blamed the contractors, the union. So they say, watch out, union. And that's from Business Week. I commend the governor and the mayor for putting their feet forward this past week, saying we must take care of sewers, our roads, and everything. And I also now commend D.R. Horton. They can put their energy and strength to get a contract for all the things, and to get a contract for all the houses, fixing, remodeling, painting all the houses, and all the hotels in the islands. And then all of my union brothers and sisters get jobs, even in the hotel industry. But keep our island green. Where it's good, leave them green. There's many more places we will live, will be more affordable one day when we get our Hawaii nation back. So just be patient and wait, and good things will happen, because we have a good president, we have a good leaders, but we have to work with our politicians. Educate them, because they educated us to be what we are, to represent your family for the future, yourselves, to leave back a legacy, like I am leaving a legacy, and you are, to do what is right in our life. Because our children will be affected by that, and they will be the leaders. But we've known in the past what the leaders been doing. Enough of this going backwards was idle. We must move on for idling. We got to take care of our family, because we are all family here. We will be married. One day our families will be married, and we get plenty of children. But anyway, I pray for us. Every day our families be living on this land, Hawaii, for this is heaven, and continue moving on the right direction for our kupuna and our children. Thank you, Commissioner, and everyone here.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you for your testimonies.
Ricky Ty.
Want to affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? Yes, I do. Please state your name, your address, and proceed.
My name is Ricky Ricardo Tai. I live 2624 Mountain Valley Place, Honolulu, 96819. 26, I'm sorry. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to this commission and for giving not only myself but everyone else the opportunity to speak their opinion. I'm in favor of the OPV project. I'm a proud member of Local 368, the Laborers Union, for the past 23 years. These past few months, in fact, these past 4 years have been hard for most of the people I know in the construction industry. Not only would this project give us work to do, but I think about my grandchildren, and I think about my godson. What's going to happen to them in the next 20 years? They're going to be adults. They're going to need jobs. They're going to need a place to live. And I think this OPV project is something that would greatly benefit them. Not only us for today, but our future generation. Just like the brother just said, the cake is their future. But if there's nothing there for them, then everything is lost. Thank you.
Parties, questions? Commissioners, questions? Thank you. Okay, that concludes public testimony. We will, as soon as possible, have a new hearing date set for the benefit of the public. It will be by way of a printed agenda, which will be available online. As soon as we have that, we'll let everybody know. Ms. Dunn, you had a question?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify the scope of the briefing. You may have already stated this, but I wanted to clarify that it's limited to the issue of the Commission's authority and jurisdiction with regard to important agricultural land and that issue. That's the scope of the briefing. Is that?
The briefing should be on, well, let me ask the petition first.
Yeah, I think our motion sets it out. It's regarding Article 11, Section 3 of the State Constitution and Chapter 205-47, which is the IAL legislation, because that sprung from that article. So both the statute as well as the Constitution with regard to the authority of this commission.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify because I think there was some mention of the criteria under 1577B6 or something, but I just wanted to clarify that everything.
I think when I mentioned that, if you look at that particular provision of the Hawaii Administrative Rules, it references back to the agricultural issue. That's why I mentioned it.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I don't want to just get into a legal discussion regarding the meaning of that provision, so I guess.
You'll have your chance.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping the briefing, as I said, I think we've extensively briefed these issues, and I'm hoping it'll be narrowly focused and hopefully helpful to the commission.
All right. Again, the agenda will be published as soon as we are able to set a hearing date. It will definitely be prior to the end of June. With that, is there anything else that we need to discuss before we close on this matter? Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to enter executive session. Second. All in favor? All opposed? Passes. Thank you. Let's